Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to have you all here. My name is Jesper. I'm a program manager here at Fyrsoft, and I'm also the organizer of this webinar. And then now we've had a couple of these webinars, and we've been working with a lot of clients in these specific COVID times and trying to make sure that everybody stays productive and sort of getting the gist of this this working from home. So during this webinar, you will hear from both Prasad and Bob, who from People Tech Group and Fyrsoft respectively, but they will introduce themselves very shortly. And also you would hear from about some of our more recent use cases within that we've done with both SLGs, healthcare, and some finance industry use cases. But moving forward, a little bit of housekeeping rules just to make everything nice and easy here. Basically, since there's a lot of us in this particular call, I will be monitoring the chat all the way through this particular webinar. So if you have any questions, by all means, fire them away, and then we will take it at the end of the session where we've got a Q&A for everyone. Also, post this webinar, we'll be sending out some handouts, basically just like what this was in a nutshell, and basically some of the capabilities where Fyrsoft specifically can help you out if it's with some of these productivity tools. The recording will be put up on Fyrsoft website, and we'll be sending a link of that as well for your convenience. Now, so before we begin the presentation, I just want to give you a very, very brief introduction to Fyrsoft. If you haven't been working with us just yet, then at Fyrsoft, we're basically experts on digital transformation, and we're gold partnered with Microsoft here in North America. And we really excel and help our customers reimagine how they bring people together with data, processes, and really create value and make sure they can maintain or create a competitive advantage in this digital first world. And if you partner with Fyrsoft, then we can help each other quickly and successfully transform you into a digital company with a lot of agility to a tailored to your specific needs approach. Now, in Fyrsoft, our core competencies revolve around three major pillars in digital transformation, which is modern workplace, intelligent cloud solutions, and modern applications. But enough about us. Let's get to the presenters. So these two gentlemen will be the presenters of the day. So we have Prasad, the Director of Cloud Services at People Tech, and then Bob Duffy. But I'll hand over the word to Prasad. Prasad, take it away.
Thank you, Jesper. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. As Jesper introduced, I'm Prasad Paluri, Director of Cloud Services at People Tech Group. I have 20 years of experience, and most of my experience have been working as a Microsoft full-time engineer with Windows Server team and within Windows OS org, and I also work with product teams as well. So I bring in that experience into People Tech and Fyrsoft, and for the last 4 years, myself and my team, we have been closely working with Microsoft product team, which is now called WVD, and we have gone through a complete journey of migrating remote desktop services, if you have heard them before, of lifting and shifting their workloads from on-prem to cloud as infrastructure as service. But recently, we have been working with Microsoft hand in hand with the Windows Virtual Desktop, which is part of the Azure core services now, which you might be aware. We have been releasing a lot of open source tools like management, diagnostics, and scale, and we are collaborating and releasing more open source tools. So I'll be going through them a little bit and also talk about a solution that we came up with working with partners and all the learnings through that. So Bob, you would want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. I don't know about you all, but work from home is starting to feel like the new normal out here in Redmond. We've been and work from home since Microsoft kind of announced they were moving everyone to home on March 4th. And now we've just rolled over our 2-month mark here. So, and now we're hearing from Microsoft corporate folks, as well as others, that when we do come back, we're going to be coming back very slowly. It's going to be more like the turning of a dial from one position to the next than a flipping of a switch. And as we all know, this work from home is going to continue at a much higher rate for the next year, possibly even longer in many cases. All that says is optimizing the productivity of your remote workers, and everyone that is working remote will continue to pay off, now and well into the future. And that's why you're here today, I imagine. A little bit about my background. I've got over 30 years of technology consulting experience. I've been consulting to and with Microsoft since the Windows 95 launch back in the fall of 95, when I helped Microsoft scale its customer support systems from 400 concurrent users all the way to 4,000. And we hit that mark with Windows 95 launch. That was kind of unheard of at that point, a single client server system supporting 4,000 workers across the US in multiple locations, over a dedicated network at Microsoft. But what I'm here today is to tell you about some of the stories much more recent than that, of the folks that we've helped get up onto Teams and WVD in response to the COVID epidemic. And now they are all using these technologies to make their employees as productive as possible from home while maintaining data security and system security. Next. So a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to be starting by reviewing some of the classic and expanded use cases that COVID has brought to us. Then we'll be doing a brief overview of Teams and Windows Virtual Desktop. And then we'll follow with the process that we follow for rapid deployment of these technologies. Then we'll do a demo, because what's a good webinar without a demo? We'll get in and show you, hands-on what a WVD environment looks like, under the covers. And then we'll finish with a question and answer session. So for starters, let's get in and review those classic and new use cases that we all now need to use to keep our remote workers up and productive. Next. So virtualization has traditionally supported quite a number of classic use cases. Companies have been using virtualization for years to address specific business needs and provide secure access to their data and their organizational resources to employees that need to work remote. Some of these classic use cases for remote workers and virtualizations are shown here. Things like ensuring compliance with data security in regulated industries, like financial services, healthcare, and government, allowing you to quickly spin up an elastic workforce when you need to for short-term needs, things like mergers and acquisitions, short-term employees or contractors. Right? It also has, for many years, allowed you to support specific employee needs. Right? Things like BYOD, which is right now obviously playing a critical role in this work from home environment, as well as supporting call centers, branch workers, while maintaining tight control of your security and your applications and data. It's essentially centralized type control with a distributed endpoint environment. And finally, another classic case has been handling specialized workloads, things like engineering design apps and legacy applications like Windows 7 apps, those old client server apps I used to work on, et cetera. Or specialized software. Sometimes we've run into some cases at places like Columbia University where they needed special tools that are not licensed to be run everywhere to be made available to their faculty and students. And now that they're all worldwide, right? They can't come into the lab anymore and access those specialized applications. In these kinds of cases, virtual desktop technology helps employees stay as productive as possible with a virtualized experience on their PC, phone, tablet, just as if they have a physical PC sitting right in front of them. They're remoted into that machine, and they're seeing everything. And with WVD and the network technology of today, these experiences can be highly performant. Right? It can also really simplify the management, provisioning, and access to these corporate data and applications because it's centralized, right? So ultimately, this can really reduce the costs and resources associated with managing individual devices and remote individuals. So, now here comes the novel coronavirus, and it's brought a number of new use cases to the forefront. Next. So COVID-19 has crashed down on us and has made work from home the new normal. Now virtual desktops and teleconferencing platforms need to be used to support a whole new set of workloads. Everything from traditional office-based functions, accessing those apps, those office productivity apps in government, sales and marketing, et cetera. And also burgeoning new demand for services like telehealth and even traditional corporate functions, right? All of these functions now need to be supported with secure remote access to the tools that they need to get their jobs done, right? Often these are applications that aren't currently available on the web. They need to get to those, and they need to keep your data secure as well, right? They're accessing corporate data from home computers and devices. That's dangerous. There are security loopholes that are being exposed, but technologies like WVD can lock that up, right? And Teams and its high security can also provide you a sense of security, right? While at the same time keeping your company compliant with security standards like HIPAA, ISO, and SOC standards, right? These are all baked into and audited on a regular basis on these platforms. And I don't know about you all, but that guy in the last photo reminds me of someone getting on the call right at the beginning who had their son coming up and echoing in their ear. WVD and Teams can do a lot of things, but they can't help you be productive with a 2-year-old on your lap, I don't think. But that aside, we're here today to tell you about what we can do to help people be productive in these new work from home scenarios. So let's take a deep dive into the technologies and how you can apply them. Prasad? Prasad, you there? You might be muted, Prasad.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Sorry, guys. So as Bob said, during this challenging times, there are certain key elements for running critical to running a business, right? So one of the three critical things are there is still a need to execute the projects and to run the ongoing process and keep the people connected and also keep them very productive. So that's going to be a challenge, having everybody work remotely from home. So if you see every project is completely different, but there are some common aspects in a project, like how you pull together your team, share your information, set tasks and deadlines, and also checking in with your teams regularly and collaborating with them on documents and sharing consistently all the up-to-date information with them. So Microsoft Teams is not just a tool like Slack or Zoom or any other interfaces. It's a platform or a hub. Microsoft Teams is a hub for teamworks within Microsoft 365, which actually brings together everything a team needs, like from chatting to a threaded conversation to meetings and videos and to content collaboration. And also it brings the power of Office 365, all the PowerPoint, Excel, SharePoint, and ability to integrate not only the built-in applications, but also it brings in the ability to integrate apps. It also brings in the ability to create workflows that your business relies on. So Teams is becoming a platform. Microsoft is heavily investing on Teams. There is so much of AI integration. People are doing a lot of chatbot instead of having a help desk. all the knowledge repository are integrated into the chatbots where your employees can self-serve some of them. And Teams brings AI in terms of blurring the background in your video, so you have those privacy working from home. And also Teams gives you like transcription service, inline translation, so that brings in the rich experience of putting your team together and helping them collaborate. So Teams has been a key success factor for a lot of organization. And when they have to execute their projects and run with their process and connect the people together, there is no one specific tool. You have like multiple tools in the market, but there is not one tool that brings everything together and makes your employees very productive. So Teams has been pretty huge in the success of having a work from home scenario for your teams. So the next slide. So I'm going to go a little bit into the Windows Virtual Desktop. A lot of you might be aware about the traditional virtual desktop infrastructure, which was originally built on Windows Server OS. If you take all the RDS, remote desktop services, remote apps, remote desktops, everything that, including the components like the AWS Workspace, everything is built on the server OS. And none of the apps are not optimized for running on a server OS. So we all have been using the rich Windows 10 OS at home and at office, and we have experienced the productivity of using Office 365 apps. There is nothing better than bringing those two together into the cloud. So Microsoft has created this new virtual desktop infrastructure, which can virtualize your desktops and apps and can serve from the Azure cloud. Microsoft built a OS, which is called Windows 10 Multi-Session, which is actually bringing your Windows 10 OS into the Azure cloud. And also it brings a lot of richness of Office 365 right into your Azure cloud. And sorry guys, yeah. So Windows Virtual Desktop is a very comprehensive tool that allows you to bring your virtualization of apps and desktop. So as I said, like having this virtual desktop on cloud not only allows you to quickly deploy, it allows you to quickly scale and also have it secured on the Azure cloud. I'm going to go into the details of how and all the different benefits. But before I go into the depth of what, I want to talk about why someone would need WVD. So here are some of the key business drivers. So Bob did talk about some of the verticals and motivation factors of why some business are driving towards WVD. We have seen quadruple growth on WVD. WVD is on steroids. It's growing at a very faster rate. So I want to bring in some of my learnings, like why people are getting on to WVD from a business driver perspective. So if you look at the first point, the cost reduction. So it actually brings down your total cost of ownership of desktop by having to run your desktop on the Azure cloud, because the whole VDI infrastructure is managed by Microsoft, and taking advantage of Windows 10 multi-session is going to drastically bring your desktop cost. Not only that, to manage your desktops, it also brings down the labor cost of not having to manage and monitor the infrastructure of VDI. And one of the other driving factors we are seeing is a lot of organizations are moving away from their CapEx model of refreshing their hardware in data centers and moving their desktops into cloud and going into more OpEx and subscription model. And it's working out really well for many businesses. And one of the other driving factors, Windows 7. As you know, a lot of SLG and finance organizations still run their clients on Windows 7. It's end of service. And they also some organizations run virtual desktop infrastructure on Windows Server 2008, and that is also end of service. So that creates a security risk for the companies. So what Microsoft did is Microsoft WVD team enabled a scenario where you can bring your Windows 7 image and run directly into the Azure cloud and still have the support for Windows 7. So that will allow you to modernize your current platform without having to spend a lot of effort and effort in modernizing those applications. And as Bob said, work from home has brought a lot of these BYOD scenarios, and managing those endpoints is a challenge. Security is at risk, and WVD does the best of having all your apps virtualized and all the data and desktops sit on the cloud. And the way we scale up and scale down, we turn off the VMs after the work hours, so it's all secure, and it allows organizations to allow employees to bring their own devices. Uh, and a lot of organizations still have those security and compliance requirements, and I'll go into the details of how that enables more security on WVD, and also the ability to bring in more on-demand workforce and enable desktops is seamless in WVD. So these are some of the business drivers we have seen. I would like to go into the next slide. So Bob, do you want to go through some of the recent use case we have enabled with our partners?
Right, yeah, thanks. Since COVID-19 crisis began and work from home has become a necessity, we have been enabling lots of remote work scenarios. And Satya Nadella put it in a recent earnings call, the move to remote work has led to orders of magnitude increase in the usage of Teams and other services such as WVD. There is no question that moving to the public cloud, even at a time like this, is capital efficient, even for businesses that have tough economic times and cycles. One of the smartest things we can do is transition to an efficient frontier as quickly as possible so that they have more agility, more elasticity, and better unit economics coming out of this crisis. Or as Governor Cuomo succinctly put it yesterday, build back better. I love that guy, and he's right. This is an opportunity to improve our businesses, not just make them more resilient. WVD saw its usage triple during the last quarter. Teams is now up 75 million daily active users. That's 70% increase since March. So companies are adopting these technologies and fast. As key IT resources are reprioritized to focus on essential IT functions like security and mobility, we've also seen, personally, we've seen an uptick in activity leveraging the Azure cloud in general. This has really accelerated our customers' interest in moving their enterprise applications and data to the cloud. For instance, we're building an Azure data lake for Washington State Investment Board that allows them to better track and manage their portfolio and risk. And their portfolio managers have access to that at all times via the web and via their mobile. And of course, security underlies all of these cases that we're talking about here today. So our security practice has been especially busy laying down cloud security best practices at clients like the Georgia Office of the State Treasurer, where we've implemented Windows Hello for Business that provides them passwordless modern authentication, where you can sign in with your biometrics and a physical key fob. This is providing the next generation of passwordless authentication, something that I'm sure many of you in high security environments like financial services and healthcare should probably be considering now, if you're not already. As the treasurer of the state in Georgia, the OST wants to maintain the #1 security posture in the state. And this is just one more step in that direction, and they're using this time to do that. For every WVD installation we do, we lay down a mission-critical cloud computing configuration. We call it MC3. And it's a comprehensive best practice that we have jointly defined with the Microsoft security specialists that ensure enterprise resources in your Azure cloud are secured. In fact, on one of on the back end of some of our WVD implementations, we've been asked to migrate other applications from their on-prem servers to the cloud into their newly secured Azure environment. So let's dive into a few of these recent use cases. Next. First up, the city of Atlanta. We first got started in the city of Atlanta almost exactly 2 years ago when they were hit by a different kind of virus, the ransomware kind. They were hit hard and across all of their departments. And we were the first boots on the ground alongside Microsoft, helping them spin up their new systems and getting their apps up and running. Now, 2 years later, here we are again, this time fighting a more traditional virus, one that has also threatened to shut down the city. Within an hour notice, we had a team of 10 deep rolling out teams and WVD to help the city of Atlanta battle COVID-19 pandemic. This work helped get many of their city employees back up and running from home with secure access to their applications and their data. This story was picked up by the Wall Street Journal early in this COVID epidemic, and in an article that featured the CIO of Atlanta, Gary Brantley. And the move to remote work has changed the way the city conducts business. Now, the city remote workforce holds their meetings via Teams. They even have the Atlanta City Council running council meetings as virtual meetings that citizens can join in by phone. And also, the council uses a virtual platform for voting on legislation and reviewing documents. So we rolled out WVD with them in addition to Teams and on top of our mission critical cloud configuration, so that their city employees that needed secure access to desktop applications and tools could continue to get their jobs done remotely. And this has been a huge success story. Next up, the work we did at Washington Federal Bank. WaFed deployed WVD to allow the remote workers to securely access some applications that they needed. But they didn't have the good tools to manage and monitor the WVD environment. So they reached out to us to help them deploy better management, monitoring, and optimization tools for their WVD environment. With these tools, they were able to manage their users, publish applications that their users needed to access remotely, and also able to optimize their Azure spend by implementing things like auto scaling. So remote systems were automatically spun down when the demand was low, and then automatically spun up just prior to predicted demand so that they were ready when needed. Later in this presentation, Prasad is going to provide more information about auto scaling strategies that can save you money. So listen for that part. They can also help you ensure your employees get great performance as soon as they log in. Pop the systems there for them. Next up, the NYU's Langone Medical Center. As we all know, New York was hit hard by the virus and had to shut down very quickly and suddenly. NYU Langone needed their doctors and clinicians to get access to applications and data that they needed to do their jobs remotely. They had an existing Citrix environment that they were using for some of their applications, but they wanted a cost-effective way to greatly expand the number of users and the number of applications that were available to their remote users. And this is where technology like WVD and the Azure cloud come in. Langone wanted to have, obviously get these applications out there and scaled, but they needed to do it securely and cost effectively. They didn't want to have to buy a bunch of expensive on-premise servers to support these environments, right? So bursting to the cloud with WVD was a natural area of interest to them. And since WVD runs in the cloud, scaling that up and down is very easy to accomplish. Right? So providing that access to desktop applications and remote home users and devices while still ensuring that all of their patient data was securely managed was really appealing to them. And just on a side note, I don't know if any of you heard, but just last week, WVD attained HIPAA certification. So making it even more attractive to handle this kind of sensitive data workload. Next, the Australian Health Clinics, the Australian government's Department of Health supports many providers across their country. And many of these providers, more than 60% of them, use a legacy.net application called Medical Director for electronic health records and practice management. And with the surge in demand to provide remote care, many of these healthcare professionals that suddenly didn't have access to their medical director application back at the clinic were forced to store sensitive patient information on their personal devices, which is an absolute violation of their data security policies. Due to the crisis, though, the Australian government provided them a temporary extension to their healthcare providers to meeting their data regulations. But this exemption was only temporary, and who knows how long this remote care scenario will need to be provided. In addition, they had mental health clinicians that we're seeing a huge increase in new patients. And for those patients, they needed to assess them and treat them virtually as soon as possible while keeping their sensitive data secure. So these providers needed both a stable and secure video conferencing solution, as well as application access, remote application access. They needed both. And Microsoft Teams and WVD are the 1-2 punch that provide them the solutions that they need to meet their providers' needs for data security and remote access. So now let's take a deeper dive into the benefits of Microsoft Teams and WVD. Prasad?
Yeah, hi, Bob. Yeah, we did go through briefly like what are the different benefits. Like we are going to explain a little bit in depth about the different benefits. So Teams brings in this simplified tool for collaboration, which runs on a browser or on an app that allows teams to collaborate together or through chat, meeting, calls, files, and app sharing. And also you can enable workflows within the teams. As I mentioned earlier, it allows you to execute projects by continuing the ongoing process and also connects people together. So one of the key advantage of Teams is, as I mentioned, it's a hub or a platform that allows you to bring in other apps and services right into the tool through the marketplace or building custom apps. One of the key thing that we use in our company as well as the planner and then the daily stand-up campaign board. It has changed how we run our teams stand-up, which we used to do in person in office. Now we are running everything remotely, and the tool has been awesome. We get notification of all those information which are slipping, and it gives a holistic view. It actually brings the culture of bringing people together, and it allows people to communicate more, which is very key for business to be successful in this situation here. And having these nice dashboards that are built in that can be enabled within few minutes. And not only it brings all these features, but also brings a consistent user experience, whether you're doing it from your tablet or phone, or you can do it from a desktop app or from your browser. One of the other thing you would have noticed is I've been using Teams on browser recently because I have a Microsoft account and a PeopleTech account. So that allows me to log into different tenants at the same time by running different ways of connecting to Teams. Uh, it also allows you to create webinars and events like live meetings and scale up to like 10,000 members. As Bob mentioned, all the teams are backed up with this enhanced security, so which comes part of the Office 365 compliance and security protocol, and that makes all the communication between your team members very secure and keeps all your files and sharing of information very secure. You would have heard about Zoom bombing and how the security risk with Zoom. So having Teams will allow you to have those communications and having Teams on a secured channel. Yeah. So let's go a little bit into the WVD scenario here, Jesper. So I want to go one level deep and kind of explain you why we talked about what is WVD, why WVD, and now we want to go into the benefits. Like I'll go through multiple benefits. The first benefit is the end user experience. As I did mention to you earlier, the whole Windows Virtual Desktop, they built this new OS, which is called Windows 10 Multi-Session, that allows to bring the Windows 10 OS into the cloud. And it also enables to allow employees to connect from any device, from a thin client or from a tablet or from an iOS device or from a Linux platform. So you can connect to your remote apps and desktop from any device and through any platform, either through a browser or through an app that is available through Marketplace. So WVD also has optimized a lot. There is a lot of collaboration between Windows team and Office 365 team for the last couple of years. So that two teams working together has brought up a lot of interesting features. One of the top features, teams have been optimized for WVD. So they have optimized the network bandwidth, the frame rates of communication. They also optimize the the bandwidth of how the information is getting transferred. The other important advantage of Office is through the acquisition of FX Logic. A lot of you might have heard about FX Logic acquisition of Microsoft. What it enabled is it enabled Office 365, especially the Outlook, to perform really better. So they actually containerized the profiles that allows to cache all the Outlook information in a container and then automatically attach those profile containers into the desktop that you're connected to. And the containers also enabled some rich features like having your desktop files being indexed so that they're available to you through search and other things. And the OneDrive is optimized. Now it's more reliable and faster. As you all aware, OneDrive, all the files sits on Azure, and having your Windows desktop run on Azure brings those two together. It brings in the faster and reliable experience of synchronization of files from your cloud to local desktops. So this is on the end user experience. Now we want to go into security. So WVD, when it was written on Azure, it is completely relying on Azure Active Directory for authentication. So it brings in all the rich features like multi-factor authentication, conditional access, and also the intelligent security graph. It allows you to integrate into Sentinel. Having your identity managed on Azure Active Directory makes WVD very rich and very secure. And then traditionally on a VDI infrastructure, used to work on an inbound port. So now with WVD, Microsoft has removed the need for inbound port, and they all operate through reverse connect protocol. So there is no inbound port, which means it's more secure, and you don't need to monitor your infrastructure for any inbound ports. Not only that, having your Microsoft manage and host the entire infrastructure for you, there is no need for a public IP or a public IP for your employees to connect. All your employees connect directly into the WVD and connect into your infrastructure, which can be on a private network, so which makes it very secure. And Microsoft introduced roles into WVD. Previously, you need to be an RDS admin, and your system admins used to have all access. Now, WVD brings in multiple roles like owners, operators, and contributors that allows you to kind of give role-based access to different employees and have the special, they can do certain needs, they can fulfill certain needs for WVD. So moving on to the next slide. As I did mention, one of the key drivers for people to adopt WVD, other than the cost and the experience, is the security and is especially the cost optimization. So WVD brings the Windows 10 experience at a multi-session cost. What does it mean is it allows you to have as big of a session host server, and you can have multi-sessions within that particular server. So it distributes the workload within a particular server and gives you that rich Windows 10 experience so that you can distribute the cost, and it brings the cost by somewhere 40 to 70%, depending on how you're enabling your environments. And Azure also brings you a capability to provision and only pay for what you use. So you can turn on your VMs and turn off your VMs using the scale script that we built. So that way you can keep the cloud cost in control and also pay for what you use on the cloud. And as I did mention to you earlier, like there is no need for setting up this VDI infrastructure. Like previously, the broker gateway, the licensing server, there was a need for setting up those infrastructure. If you look at the diagram on the top right, it's completely managed and owned by Microsoft, so that you don't need to have those services to be maintained. And there is no additional cost for WVD. It's all included in your M365 licenses and cost. And through Azure's reserved instance, it also brings your cost down by 70%, and there is no labor cost for managing your WVD service. So can we go on to the next slide? As Bob said, we did enable a lot of use cases like City of Atlanta. We have done it. We have done few deployments in few days to a week. It depends on are we doing a standard deployment or a custom deployment? We have a rapid deployment process in place that starts with the initial discovery and prerequisites. We do the initial analysis of their what is their identity strategy, their network strategy, and we take a quick assessment of what apps they're trying to virtualize, the desktops and apps that they're trying to bring in. And once we do the initial analysis, we set up this core infrastructure. As Bob said, we do work with Microsoft to have this MC3 Microsoft Mission Cloud Critical configuration. So depending on organization needs, we set up this whole network, Azure network, and the domain controllers in a resilient pattern so that it kind of complies to the regulatory industry requirements. Once the core infrastructure is set up, the product implementation happens within few hours. We enable the DAS Manager solution that allows customers to manage, monitor, and optimize their WD environment. Once it is done, we provide a 2-week support, and you can also take out managed service support if needed. Moving on to the next slide. So what is this DAS Manager? DAS Manager, why we build DAS Manager? When we worked with Microsoft in releasing this free version, we saw that there are some shortfalls. So we had to build a solution for some partners so that they can take advantage of having a single pane of glass where they can manage, monitor, optimize, and deploy their WD environment. It allows the organization to accelerate and adopt WD without having to go through the learning curve of understanding and deploying WD. So our mission is to kind of have every organization, the IT managers, secure and self-manage their modern desktop on the Azure cloud. Going on to the next slide. So if you look at the architecture here, on the top right is where the Microsoft WD Azure services exist. It's part of the Azure core services, where they include all the gateway, connection broker, and everything. And as a customer, you bring in your subscription. That's where all the session host servers are running in. All your backups, monitors are enabled in your client subscription. If you take the top right corner, that's where you're on-prem. There are two set of users. One is your user group trying to connect into WD through their laptops and other devices. So they directly connect into the WD service and connect into your subscription. So that way it's all secure. So if you look at the persona on-prem, there's an IT manager. So IT manager, instead of going through the WD services and also going to your Azure subscription, they can take advantage of using the Ubiquiti DAS Manager on a single pane that will allow them to do all the operations without having to have a learning curve of understanding the PowerShell scripts and keeping up with all the WD updates, including MSX app attach and other features that are getting built into WD. So next. So these are some of the benefits I did mention. It brings like having like a single pane allows a quick learning curve for your users. Instead of taking weeks and months to get onto WD, you can get onto WD within hours and days. So that kind of accelerates your adoption of WD. And not only that, we also bring some of the integration into Office 365 that allows you to add users from AAD into WD, and also enable groups that will allow you to add multiple users in one shot. So those are some of the features. The other key benefits of using the DAS Manager is integration or value-added services integrating into Azure Cloud. One of that is, we call it autoscale. We took the Microsoft, whatever we collaborated with Microsoft on the open source autoscale, we took that and enhanced it based on a lot of feedback we get from partners. So that will allow you to manage your cloud cost and also bring your overall cost of running your infrastructure on Azure Cloud. And we also integrate into Azure Backup. That way, with one click, you can enable and disable backups without having to go into the Azure portal. And also there is, we also enable real-time monitoring of your environment through our monitoring tool. That way you can proactively diagnose your issues and fix them before your customer complains. Next slide, please. So, as I said, there are 4 different pillars in WD in a desktop as a service manager solution. First thing is, as a customer goes through this journey, the first thing they go through is the deploy scenario. They try to use all the ARM template PowerShell scripts, and then it's a kind of pain for them to kind of set up this environment. So we optimized it and we automate a lot of things through our deploy scripts. And once the deploy is done, the next thing that customers want to do is manage the environment. We set up, many customers have done the pilot environment by themselves, like DIY, and they realize that they cannot scale it because it's very hard for them to manage all their departments and the host machines and the users and the apps. So it's kind of it's kind of fragmented in terms of how the solutions are available on Azure and outside of Azure on PowerShell scripts. So managing becomes a complexity. So we build an ability to manage within the DAS manager. Once the management is set up, in few weeks, organizations start hitting into a problem, which is monitoring. They do more reactive monitoring, and they hear a lot of issues from the customers. So we built in that monitoring capability where customers can proactively monitor and fix some of the issues. Once the monitoring is done, after a month, a lot of customers get into this Azure billing, and they want to reduce their cost. That's where our optimized tools comes in and allows the partners to reduce the cost once they have done the monitoring part. Yeah, next slide. So I would like to go into the demo. That's the interesting part here. Let me share my screen. Jesper, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it, Prasad.
So UbiKite is a SaaS-based application, a multi-tenant web-based application that can be set up within few hours on your existing WVD deployment or set up on a new WVD environment. So once the deployment is set up, you have a URL to log in. Once you log in, this is the first screen that you'll be seeing. So you'll be entering into the organization dashboard. This is your tenant, and it gives you a kind of quick overview into your tenant, the number of host pool, the session hosts, the users, and the apps that are available in one snapshot. It also gives you how your session hosts are ramping up and ramping down depending on your workload. So let's go into the tenant. So once you go into a tenant, here is the list of all the host pool. You can consider the host pool as your departments like engineering, human resource, product design, sales, and marketing. So within the tenant, you have this holistic view. You can also look at some of the Azure information. And let me go into some of the interesting stuff here. So if you go into your tenant, you want to manage your images. Images are nothing but how you want to kind of package your apps for each department. Like every department have their own line of business applications. You want to create a separate image for every department and have a spin-off host within that particular department. So here it gives you an ability to create an image or onboard an existing image that you have already provisioned right into the tool. You can walk through this steps here and create a VM. So I'll go and demonstrate how these VMs are being used later. And then coming on to the host pool, as I said, these are like your different departments. So UbiKite Task Manager allows you to have like one single pane of glass where you can look at all this information in one shot. You can look at all the departments. You can see number of user sessions that are running in. For example, accounting has one user already connected and running on it. And you can also see number of servers that are running, like 3 servers, and how many are active sessions that are running in if they have not logged off or inactive. And it also gives you like how many app groups are within that particular department as well. The other unique value we bring in is auto scalability. We took the auto scale from a script-based auto scale that you can build it and schedule it on Azure, either through Logic App or through other schedulers. Or you can come in and you can enable those auto scale policies within a host pool, and it automatically turns on and off your machines based on these parameters here. And the other cool factor is you have backup and restore here. You can create new backup policies that actually create backups into your Azure backup. So you can have this business continuity. If you have to restore your backups, you can do it from your Azure backup as well. Going back to the engineering here, so manage host pool. The other thing is you can jump. If you see, look at the menu on the top, it allows you to directly jump into host pool or click on session host and look at all your session host servers or get into a particular app group without going into the hierarchy. Either you can go into a department, like, okay, I want to go into accounts and I want to go into a particular app groups. You can do that, or you can directly jump or you can go into a desktop app group, click on it, and then see the number of users. You can provision apps and users here, right in here, or you can directly jump right into the session host and do certain actions on the session host here. You can delete a session host, or you can add provision more session host here. Let me quickly go into one of the engineering apps here. So if you see, it has 5 host machines, and you can see other information here. You can also see an app group. I would like to go into a remote app group like Office. Here you can go into your app. You can provision a new app, and you can also add a user right from here. That allows you to add users and apps right from here. If you have enabled some users or host, you can go through our global search. You can directly jump into those features, like if it's a user, or if it is if you want to go into a host pool or app group, you can directly jump right from the global search here. I'd like to quickly go into the monitoring. Here is the monitoring dashboard. As I said, this gives you a real-time monitoring of your environment of all your host machines that are available. Just give me a second. It's collecting the information. I'm going to quickly authenticate myself. So we have a role-based access. A user needs to have, a user can be part of manage or monitor, or they can have both the access as well. So let me log in here. So here in monitoring, you can see all the host machine that are running in, and you can see all the health of the host machine. If you hover over, it tells you all the CPU, memory, and all the utilization. If you have multiple hosts across the host pool, you can click on it and look at individual host pool and go into the specific host. You can also view the desktop. You can go into the specific desktop view and have all the desktop information that we collect. And you can also set a machine. You can start, stop, restart, or set it on drain mode, so it doesn't accept any more connections right from there. So if you need a detailed demo, I can actually go into the details of the individual features of manage and monitor. So back to Jesper. You want to walk through some of the benefits?
Sure, I'll take it over. Give me just a second. All this clicking here. There we go.
One thing we wanted to cover was some of the Microsoft funding programs that are available to you and to partners. There's a host of programs available to help you get to the Azure cloud and to do things with Teams and WVD. This one program came out recently, the Azure Pre-Approved Offer to Accelerate WVD. In this program, your partner gets, your implementation partner gets $20K in funding, and you get Azure credits, right? So this is a really popular program. I hear funding is going very fast. If you're interested, you'll need to move quickly. But in addition to this program, there are a host of, as I said, other programs for cloud adoption and Teams adoptions, workshops, etc., that we can tap into. So just let us know if you're interested. This is an individual conversation we would love to have with each of you, and along with your Microsoft account exec, use these programs to help you accelerate your efforts and to get, the professional help you need to really make it go and make it go fast. All right, well, we got a couple minutes left for questions. If you have a question, please type it in the chat. If we don't get to it right now, we'll follow up with you and make sure that your question gets answered. But Prasad, as questions come in, what are some of the common questions that you've been hearing?
So one of the common questions that we heard from the previous webinar is people ask us like what it takes to set up this WVD, how long it takes to set up this WVD. So as I did mention earlier, we can set up WVD. If it is a standard deployment, we can set it up in few hours. If you're going through bringing your connecting with your on-prem infrastructure, getting your AD connected, it takes somewhere between 2 days to 5 days, depending on how much of those mission critical configurations we are setting up for you. We have built in a lot of tools in place. We have scripts in place. All we have to do is we have an attended mode script and an unattended mode script. We have to just go through the script and it automatically enables WVD into the organization and enables the management and monitoring tools as well. So they can get started on WVD. I would say within, if it is a standard deployment, they can start it within few hours. And if they are trying to bring in their AD and they are new to Azure, trying to set up a domain controller and all that, it takes like a couple of days to set up that. And in terms of the cost and licensing, as I did mention earlier, one of the WVD licenses are already included into your Office license. You're not paying anything for WVD per se. All you're paying is whatever infrastructure you're enabling and all the infrastructure that you're using and the network you're using is a cost you're paying. So that's where we optimize and bring in our unique value prop by bringing in all the scale script in place that allows you to manage and control your cost on Azure cloud. So Jesper, do you see any other questions?
No, there's nobody firing questions away, but we're almost out of time. So, like, if any of you have anything to add on to this webinar, or anything you wish to ask Prasad or Bob, who has a lot of experience in this field, or maybe some issues you're seeing that you're having some trouble dealing with, by all means, fire away. Anything will do. But
thanks everyone for coming. Hope this was informative for you, and we look forward to hearing from you if you'd like to go in depth to any of these topics and see how it might apply in your environment specifically. So thanks for coming, and everyone have a great day.